I was never one to believe in ghost stories. My high school was full of them, tales of eerie happenings and strange occurrences. But the one that always stood out to me was the legend of Locker 329. The story went that decades ago, a student had been found dead inside it. No one knew how or why. Some said she had been locked in by bullies and suffocated. Others whispered that she had been hiding from something that found her anyway. Regardless of the truth, after her death, strange things began happening. Students who used that locker reported hearing whispers, seeing scratches appear overnight, or even finding their belongings missing. I never thought much about it until my own locker jammed one day, and I was forced to use locker 329 temporarily. At first, nothing happened. Days passed and I laughed at the idea of ghosts. Then late one afternoon, as I was grabbing my books, I heard it. A faint, raspy whisper. At first, I thought it was just the sound of the school's old ventilation system. But then, it called my name. I froze. The hallway was empty. I turned to look around, but there was no one. The whisper came again, closer this time, as if someone was standing right behind me. My heart pounded, and I spun around to face the locker. I pressed my ear against it, listening. Silence. Then, bang! The locker door rattled violently, as if something inside was trying to get out. I jumped back, stumbling. My breath came in short gasps, my hands trembling. Gathering my courage, I slowly reached out and unlatched the door. The moment it swung open, a gust of freezing air rushed out, and I swear, for a fraction of a second, I saw a shadow move within the depths of the locker before vanishing. The following morning, deep scratch marks covered the inside of the locker door. I was done. I refused to use it anymore. But just when I thought it was over, I found something wedged inside my backpack, a torn, yellowed piece of notebook paper. Written over and over, in a jagged, hurried scrawl, were the words, "I'm still here. Let me out." That night, I got a phone call from an unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered. There was no voice, just a whisper. My name, repeated, over and over. The next morning, locker 329 was replaced. No one spoke of it again. But even now, years later, I still wonder, was that student ever truly gone? There was a classroom in my high school that no one used. Room 214. It was locked at all times, the windows covered in dust so thick you couldn't see inside. Everyone knew the story, the girl who had disappeared there years ago. No body was ever found, no explanation given. One night, my friends and I decided to break in. We waited until the janitor was far down the hall, then picked the old rusted lock. With a click, the door creaked open, revealing a room frozen in time. Desks were still arranged in neat rows, covered in dust. Open textbooks lay abandoned, their pages yellowed with age. It was as if the students had simply vanished in the middle of class. Then we heard it, a faint scratching sound. "Probably rats," one of my friends whispered. But when we shone our phone lights towards the chalkboard, we saw something impossible. A name was being slowly etched into the dust on the board. Letter by letter, it was the name of the missing girl. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Then out of nowhere, one of my friends gasped. He spun around, his face pale. Something just touched me. The temperature in the room plummeted. My breath became visible in the air. And then we all heard it, whispering. Close, right behind us. We bolted for the door. It slammed shut before we could reach it. We pounded on it, screaming. Then suddenly, bang! The door burst open, and we stumbled into the hallway. When we turned back to look, the room was empty. The desks were covered in a thick layer of dust, undisturbed. But inside my pocket, I found a crumpled piece of paper. In shaky handwriting, it read, "Never come back again." There was a legend in our school about a girl who jumped from the third-floor window of the old wing. They said that if you walked that hallway at night, you'd see her face watching you. I thought it was nonsense, until I had to stay late one night for detention. The school was eerily quiet. The janitor's mop strokes echoed through the empty halls. I had no choice but to pass the old wing to leave. I was halfway down the corridor when a strange feeling crept over me. like I was being watched. I turned to look at the windows. There she was, a pale face, pressed against the glass, staring. Her eyes were empty black voids, her mouth twisted in an unnatural grin. I stopped breathing. My heart pounded in my ears. I blinked. She was gone. I turned to run, but at that moment, the window behind me shattered with a deafening scream. The janitor found me, shaking. When I asked him if he believed the legend, he didn't answer. He just whispered, "You shouldn't have looked." From that night on, I kept seeing her reflection, even in places where there was no one else. And one night, I woke up to find my bedroom window wide open, smeared with tiny pale handprints. Our math teacher went on leave, and we got a substitute, Ms. Holloway. She was unsettlingly pale, too still, and always watching. One day, a student raised his hand to ask a question. Before he could even open his mouth, she answered. Word for word, the entire class fell silent. Over the next few weeks, students started getting sick. They left class pale and weak, some not returning for days. Some whispered that whenever Ms. Holloway looked at them for too long, they felt drained, like something was being taken from them. One evening I stayed behind, hiding under a desk. I watched as Ms. Holloway approached the board, whispering in a language I didn't understand. Strange symbols appeared on the board as she traced them with her fingers. The air grew heavy. I felt like something was sucking the breath from my lungs. Then she turned. Her eyes, black and hollow, stared right into mine. I don't remember running, but I woke up in my bed the next morning. She was gone the next day. No one mentioned her again. But years later, while researching old school records, I found an old photograph. A teacher from 50 years ago. Her name? Miss Holloway.